Hey friends, Sean from sgtreport.com here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hey, before we begin this interview with my friend Lior Gantz, just a quick rundown of some current news. Lior and I recorded our interview just 2 days ago, but so much has happened since. First, we should all be praying for Dan Bongino. He's a true patriot. He loves his country. He stands for the president, and he has a tumor in his neck, and it's right near his vocal cords and his carotid artery. The doctors are very concerned. We really need to pray for Dan Bongino's healing. May God protect and heal Dan Bongino. He really needs your prayers, friends. And so does President Trump, who continues to be amazed that the deep state traitors have not been indicted yet. Here's what he has to say about that.
You authorized the declassification of these documents, but what does that do if we don't have John Durham and Bill Barr following up? Can you demand that they release this? People are still sitting on documents.
Yeah, I hope they're going to. And I will say this, documents are being released at a level now that nobody's ever seen before. Things that nobody thought were going to get released have been released. And you're seeing it. You're seeing it all the time. You're seeing what's going on. We caught them cold. We have them cold. And now they have to do something about it. But other documents are going to be released, Maria, which are breathtaking. Yes. Wait till you see what's coming out.
Oh, really?
Breathtaking.
Is it about Hillary Clinton, or is it about the FBI that's coming out?
It's about everything. It's about everything.
More documents to come. Breathtaking documents, friends, including documents, the president says, about Hillary Clinton, crooked Hillary, a woman who should be behind bars as we speak. Meanwhile, friends, in Arizona on Sunday, frontrunner Joe Biden and Kamala Harris held a campaign event, and no one showed up.
There's really not much to see. I'll step out of the way, but it's kind of boring out here. So it's not your typical presidential campaign event. We don't see people rallying outside. We don't see signs or really much of what's going on. And I'm told by one of the Biden staffers, local staffers, is that they kind of kept the details about the visit as far as the timing and the exact locations. And pretty much all the people that we saw enter into the parking lot about 45 minutes ago were with the Biden-Harris campaign and the poll reporters. So you would expect to see, I mean, this is a pretty big event for the two of them to be campaigning together for the first time since the Democratic National Convention. Here in Arizona, we've established, our state has established itself as a battleground state, and so this is technically a big event, but not a lot of fanfare.
Not a lot of fanfare, but that's your front runner, right? That's what the media tells us. Leading in the polls from coast to coast. What a joke. And in other news from Upside Down World, friends, this is a prom dance in the age of COVID, the COVID scam. But take a look at this. Now, you would think that's a joke, but in the age of COVID, anything goes. But we've seen this before, friends. The Rothschild 1972 Surrealist Ball invite, backwards. Everything's backwards and upside down in the Rothschild satanic version of the world. And one last note here, friends, before we begin that interview with Lior Gantz. The U.S. Congress recently condemned Q rhetoric. Well, on September 16th, 2020, Q posted a Mickey Mouse clock with the hands stopped at 10:10, and White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany just gave an interview to Fox News with a clock behind her and the time stopped at 10:10. Senator Chuck Grassley tweeted, "She needs to put new battery in little clock behind her. It's stopped at 10:10." To which Scott over at Bards of War tweeted, "APCO is the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials International. They managed the 10 codes used to represent common phrases in voice communication used particularly by law enforcement and in CB radio. 1010 equals fight in progress." As I release this video today, friends, it's October 11th, and we're sure to have a big week ahead. Okay, friends, before we start, just a quick word from this interview's sponsor. It's no secret that most of us don't get enough vegetables, which is why I started taking Metabolic Greens Plus. It contains so many healthy nutrients found in vegetables that we all need. Metabolic Greens Plus works by being a natural blend of premium toxin removers and metabolism boosters, which curbs appetite and cravings, detoxes your body, and supercharges metabolism, all to support health and weight loss. It's non-GMO and made in the USA. Now for only $49 a bottle, you can experience the benefits of Metabolic Green Plus for yourself. Just visit greenwithsgt.com or click the link, which I'll leave below this interview. All right, friends, let's begin. What a day, what a week, what a month, and the election is just 3 weeks away. I can't even believe it. Time flies, my friends. Hey, I'm back on the line, Lior Gantz. He is the founder of Wealth Research Group, and we have so much to talk about today. Lior, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for inviting me back.
Yeah, welcome back. Hey, let me just do a screen share here for you. We'll keep it topical. FBI thwarted a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Lior, I'm not sure if you've been following what's been going on in this country, but we have some states and governors acting in very totalitarian ways, all in the name of the coronavirus, while other states, Florida, South Dakota, have governors that say, no way, we're not shutting down our state, we're not going to fine people for not wearing masks, we are going to practice a little thing called freedom. Lior, what's going on in your neck of the woods? How do you see all of this?
It's very interesting, and my biggest fear with everything that's going on is that this is becoming more of a, people are rebelling more because of the economics of it, and not because of the societal part of it, the freedom part of it, the constitutional part of it. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, but it's the people that have suffered economic strain that are angrier than what the people that are just quarantined or have some sort of a measure that restricts them are not as angry as people who've suffered some sort of financial strain. And that's weird to me, because the first element should be, hey, I'm being forced to do things that I don't want to do. And the worst part is with some people is that they just understand that this thing is very highly contagious, but it's not lethal. And it's definitely not lethal to their age group, to their type of diet and health level. And so they're suffering for the collective whole. And that collective whole is a very small part of society that is really susceptible to the damage of the virus. And the last thing is, this is already 6-7 months into it, even 10 months into like the finding out in China. We need to learn to live with this. You can't put people that have done nothing wrong, literally have done nothing wrong at all, except to live and breathe. I know people have seen the stats from March and April on what this does to mental health and whatnot. This is really changing the habits of people, and I'm really surprised that more people are not angry about the part of it of freedom. They're more angry about this is hurting my pocket, and they're not realizing just how much things have changed in their lives in terms of like their rights, their basic rights. I don't know if that makes sense. The second thing that to me seems incredible is that now people see how everything is political. Up until coronavirus, politics didn't touch your life in such a direct manner that you would have seen the debates and the power struggles and the interest groups. And now you see how everything is political and just how ineffective some parts of governments are. And this is around the world I'm talking about. So that to me are the two things that have really changed. The fact that the average person now knows how everything is politicized. And then the second part is that I'm very fearful of how people do not respect their own rights to do something, and they're really the only thing they now support in high numbers is I want more stimulus.
Yeah, more stimulus, more debt, you mean, right? More debt is going to mean higher prices for gold and silver, and we'll get to that in a second. But you mentioned the debates. Lior, are you familiar with deep fakes? Do you know about deep fakes, deep fake videos? Have you heard that term?
To a degree, yes.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the debates. Let me do another screen share here. During the debate, a fly appeared on Mike Pence's head.
It wasn't there.
It just appeared out of nowhere. It literally materialized. It makes me wonder if it wasn't a deep fake fly. But even more offensive to me in the vice presidential debate, Lior, were the stacked deck questions. Like, this wasn't a debate. Here's one of the questions. It began like this. Ms. Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. In 7 states, the numbers are higher this week than last week. Lior, they don't mention the fraudulent PCR tests. They don't mention the fudged numbers. They won't talk about the real problem with this virus, which is it's a fear virus, not an actual virus that's killing millions of people. Here's another question. It was asked of Mike Pence. Was justice done in the Breonna Taylor case? Now, Lior, honest to God, are these the issues that really concern us as Americans? That's the number one issue, Breonna Taylor? Just more race baiting, Lior.
You know, it's very interesting to watch this from outside of the country, because I can also compare it to our news outlets, our mainstream news outlets here. But when you look, Sean, at American, CNN, CNBC, etc., when you watch it just as a case study, not as a way to get your to get your news feed in reality, it's almost like a joke, to be honest with you. It's so blatantly rigged and corrupt. The scripts are, in my opinion, offensive to the intelligence of the average person. It's like almost coming from above that, hey, these people would not do any research. They would just take face value, whatever we say to them, and therefore we'll just run with it. It's more than lies. It's I don't even know how to describe it. Like when they talk about President Trump, they rarely say the word president. It's like he's one from a friend from the neighborhood. He's like Trump. When you talk about Obama or Biden, it's always Vice President Biden or President. It's so presidential. And with Trump, it's none of that. It's those little things to tilt your mindset as to what you're watching. It's quite amazing to see it on such a industrial scale. It's obviously coordinated, and it's very much noticeable to somebody from the outside that, hey, there's an entire country out there that has their news in some sort of it's all sort of a deep fake bubble, or a fake bubble. You're not getting reality at all. You can never know the real truth when you watch mainstream outlets. It's unbelievably weird how it's appealing to the lowest common denominator, if that makes sense. There is no substance and depth to it. You cannot form your own decisions based on that. The word selection, the jargon, the dictionary, when you're describing Trump in the media, it's unbelievable. I'll give you the perfect example. Do you remember the Soleimani case where they took down Soleimani, which he's considered like one of the only 4 or 5 people in the Middle East's recent history whose elimination has really tilted the balance here in the Middle East. It's almost like he's non-replaceable. So that was a big achievement in the eyes of should be a big achievement in the eyes of Americans as it relates to the threat of Iran. And in the media that night, what you saw is that he was playing golf. He got a call. Hey, we can take him down. He's like, yes. And he's almost like punting another, going to the fields again. And you do not understand that there's like an 18-month build-up period where they track him. And we know it from our end because they feature a lot of documentaries here on how it actually happened. So you learn how much of an in-depth operation this is. This is like the highest level of intelligence in the world. You need to there's so many variables. And in the media, it's shown in America. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like it was in the middle of a golf game. You're disturbing. Yes, you could do that. You can run that. It's so untrue, and yet they broadcast it. It's so irresponsible to a country to do that, but has now diminished the prestige and the dignity and honor that America had as a country, where they had this common reason or reasoning power to say, hey, we can't just play as dirty as we want for this victory. There has to be some ground rules. And with this, even with Hillary, but with what's going on right now, there is no dignity. They do just anything in their power to make sure that you think the way they want you to think. And to me, it looks just so bad. And like you said, it goes to the details of somebody had to think, I want to put a fly here in order to ruin his image. You have to think how many people are behind that kind of a thinking process. It's just dirty and weird.
Well, Donald Trump got it right, Lior. Fake news. It's all fake news, which is why Google and YouTube and all of the big social media giants have changed their algorithms to filter out the competition like Breitbart and SGT Report and others that are telling the people the truth. And the mainstream media is very threatened by that because their dominance is shrinking, but evidently they do have the power to do deep fake flies. I'm sort of kidding, but I do wonder about that one. All right, let's turn our attention to the economy, Lior. Mike Maloney just put out a really incredible video the other day, Mike Maloney of goldsilver.com, and Mike is showing a chart that suggests, based on the historical run gold has had over the years, we're going to be looking at $11,250 gold in the coming years. And even at a 70-to-1 silver to gold ratio, Lior, I did the math on that, that would give us $160 silver, even at just a 70-to-1 ratio. Your thoughts on gold, Lior, in a world where the Fed, the central banks, all they know how to do is print?
Sure. I think obviously it's a very important question for everyone. The short answer is gold and silver are a much better alternative than cash right now. So that's your main thought should be gold and silver in a bull market. So regardless if you're getting it in a bottom of a correction or there's a little more to go, the main thought process should be you're in a bull market. For gold, it started at 1,053 an ounce on December 15th, 2015. It's now officially doubled that from the all-time high at August 5th, 2020. We're now recording this 2 months afterwards. So we've suffered a correction. We've gone below the 2,000 range. And I believe that the people that have sold into this correction are people that bought the coronavirus panic in March and made good money with gold and specifically with silver, but they're not the long-term people that set that support and base for precious metals. So I think the next time it goes over 2,000 for gold, it's going to be really psychological because it's going to prove that, hey, there's a new support line and it's that 2,000 range. And that's when I think it can really pick up. With silver, I actually really love the action because it traded in a range for years between 14 and 20 an ounce. And then once it pierced above 20, it had a move up to 26 and it overshot it. So to me, that everything above 26 was literally the cherry on top because I didn't think it would do that quickly. So the fact that it's come down, is very healthy, in my opinion. And the industrial usages of silver that continue to recover here, they're not going to determine the price of silver. Companies that buy, industries that buy silver, buy it in micro amounts. So to them, if silver is 30 or 35 or 40, that doesn't even justify a price increase to their end product for their consumers. They can offset those little increases in silver's price, even if it's a 40% increase. They can offset that with their own internal efficiencies, etc. The person who will determine the price of silver is the retail investor, who is now under the impression that, hey, we're in a recovery, or we're in a slow recovery mode, etc. He doesn't think that negative rates are going to go even more negative, because the commitment of traders for the 10-year bond is now at an all-time low. In other words, most people believe that rates are going higher from here. And that's obviously the contrarian bet, is that they're not going higher. There's a lot of reasoning behind why they're going to go even more negative real rates. And so in my opinion, we had this last puke with gold and silver in September, and they correlated with a correction in the S&P 500, a correction in the NASDAQ. And in my opinion, they're starting to form a new trend higher. And with silver, here's the thing. If you're already committed to going and purchasing a few ounces of silver, if you already put some petrol in your car and you're going to go to your bullion dealer and you have $300 or $400 in your hands and you're going to buy some silver rounds, if you get to that bullion dealer and he tells you it's $30 or $35, to you it doesn't matter. If you're going to buy 10 ounces or 9 ounces, people are not going to say, I'm going to go home and come back when it's 25. Even if it's 40 and you're going to end up buying 7 ounces instead of 8 ounces or 9 ounces, it's not going to matter to the average person. If he needs to spend $300 for 10 ounces or $400 for 10 ounces or $500 for 10 ounces, he wants those 10 ounces. And that $100 difference or $200 difference is, in my opinion, is not going to change for somebody who believes that there's a problem, a real existential crisis with the dollar or with the national debt, etc. So in my opinion, that's going to determine, for the most part, what's going to happen with silver. And that's why I think silver can definitely go to 50. It can go above 50. And, Eric Sprott just put millions, tens of millions of dollars at risk with First Majestic Silver. And you know what he says? He isn't going into anything unless it can deliver a 3-to-1 result. And with silver where it is, for First Majestic to do that 3-to-1 result, he's betting on much higher silver prices. And this is a person that has called it right for 40 years on precious metals and commodities in general. So I think there's huge upside. I personally am positioned for it. And I really believe that, I don't know about $11,000 an ounce for gold. There's certainly a case for firms. Gold has returned about 6.6% since 1971. If you had $35 in your pocket back then and you could have bought an ounce of gold, it's now worth about $2,000. You've made about 60 times your money. That's literally if you were there and you had all your purchasing power that you wanted to put in savings into gold, you've done so much good for yourself, your family, your children, etc. Because that $35, oh my God, if you put that in your pocket in 1971, you put it and you take it out today, and you think about the difference in what it can buy, it's astonishing. It's not the same world. So if gold continues on that pace of 6.6% in the next few years, I mean, what is the question even on people's minds? You know what I mean? If you have either cash or gold, there is no debate. If you do not need to keep comparing gold to stocks or to real estate or to productive assets. You need to compare it to non-productive assets, to ways of hedging and preserving your purchasing power. And under the fiat monetary system, you have 50 years now of track record. It's just a superior safe haven.
Yeah. Well, you said something that resonates with me, And that's this idea that it doesn't matter if you paid 35 or 40 bucks an ounce. Because when you get the stuff delivered, say you buy 10 American Silver Eagles, when they get delivered and you hold that real money in your hands, you realize how truly precious metal is, because you realize that none of your neighbors, none of your friends or colleagues, people at work, none of them got 10 ounces of physical silver delivered today. None of them is even watching that market. Most people have no precious metal, Lior. So when you actually do turn your fiat into physical precious metal and you get the stuff delivered, it really makes you realize how truly valuable the stuff is, because you can't go to Wells Fargo, you can't go to, your local bank and buy it. You can't get it there. They don't have any. Target doesn't have any. Walmart doesn't have any. Nobody's got any. Precious metal truly is precious. Never forget that term, folks. It's precious metal for a reason. It's very rare. When we think of velocity of money, we think of scarcity of tangible goods. Here's a tangible item, Bitcoin. Bitcoin turned bullish again on Thursday with the news that Jack Dorsey, the Twitter CEO, I don't care for Jack Dorsey. I think he's a totalitarian creep. But
Okay.
his company Square added 4,709 Bitcoin to its balance sheet. Bitcoin turns bullish on Square's $50 million Bitcoin purchase. The reason I bring this up, it was on my notes to talk to you about Bitcoin because I just saw an interview with Raoul Pal, the former Goldman Sachs alum, who's a very wealthy man. He has now publicly announced that he has more than 50% of his personal wealth in Bitcoin, and he is projecting a $1 million per Bitcoin price target within the next 5 years. And the reason I find the whole Bitcoin story fascinating, Lior, is because there's only, 21 million of them that will ever be. So if you want to talk about scarcity, think about a planet with 6 or 7 billion people and only 21 million Bitcoin. There's not even enough Bitcoin for every millionaire on planet Earth to hold even one. So the Bitcoin story, I think, is interesting. Do you follow the Bitcoin story, Lior?
Yeah, I do. In fact, wealthresearchgroup.com, in the free newsletter, we covered Bitcoin in 2017 in January when it was about $400 to $500 a Bitcoin. And we've covered Ethereum when it was $12 a coin. It literally ran in 6 months to $1,000 a coin in 2017. We do follow it. We understand it. We think we understand the potential of it. We look at it more from the perspective of how much the entire pool of the 21 million can be worth or should be worth. And that to us creates that top, or what a fair price for a Bitcoin should be. Obviously, it changes because if there's more risk in the world, if there's more problems with confiscation, and wealthy people believe that they have issues of demographic diversification or otherwise, then Bitcoins are worth more as a derivative of that. To us, the world of gold is a world of about $9 trillion right now. And so when you look at the market cap of Bitcoin, it's about 186 to 200 billion. It's far less than gold. So to us, if this fear of confiscation, the same fear that drives people into gold, basically, a little bit for different reasons, because gold is a physical commodity. Here you have something that's far easier to keep around, maintain, to do with, and to deal with. Bitcoin, and you have companies that are actually developing softwares and very easy systems like Square to pay with it and to actually transact with it on a daily basis. So there is much more of a momentum for Bitcoin than to gold. The world is not going towards paying with gold again. It's going towards paying with digital. Right. So there's that, obviously.
But it's not just a fear of confiscation. It's the fear of inflation, right?
Sure.
So to have a fully diversified portfolio, you might make the argument that having some Bitcoin, at least, some position, 2%, 5%, have something in Bitcoin, have something in physical silver and physical gold. I see some of the world's smartest people now including Bitcoin in their portfolios. Now, I think Raoul Paul's gone overboard here, more than 50% of his wealth in Bitcoin. But my God, if he's right, if we're talking 100,000 Bitcoin instead of $1 million Bitcoin, in 5 years, the man will have multiplied his wealth by 10 times. So, I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to think of. So I just keep my eye on the Bitcoin story because I do think it's fascinating. There's only 21 million of them. But again, it gets me back to silver. There's only about 2.5 billion ounces of physical silver on planet Earth. That includes everything. That includes your hoard. That includes my listeners' hoards, their stacks. And if you think about that, 7 billion people on planet Earth, there's not enough for every person to even have 1 ounce of silver. It's kind of like the Bitcoin story in my view, honestly.
Yeah. Look, in my opinion, or this is what I did. I took my lifestyle burn rate, my monthly burn rate as a family unit and calculated it. And then I multiplied it by 24. So I said, okay, if there's a 2-year depression, if there's something horrible, I want to have 2 years worth of fiat currency converted into precious metals. Some people listening to this would say, you know, I can't save with my career, my job, etc. I can't save 2 years worth of income. I just can't do that with the way I live. I was fortunate enough to be able to. And so what I did was I took 24 months and converted them into physical precious metals. So to me, that's a great hedge. I'm saying to myself, if everything dries up, if there's a real problem, a real reason, it takes 2 years to work it out. G7 meetings, real crisis. You have now 2 years worth of precious metals in today's fiat money, fiat currencies purchasing power, where you converted them to gold and silver. That's powerful. So to me, that's the way I look at it. Some people will say 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, whatever you can do. That's a good way to think about it. How much precious metals purchasing power do you have to live off of if there's a huge problem like people think might happen? So that's one thing. And you know, I wrote about this whole strategy at our, if you go to our website, there's a top menu button called Special Reports. That's where you have like a plethora of PDF downloads that talk about these topics and other topics about Bitcoin, precious metals, politics, and whatnot, which is important and like an added, more in-depth edition of what I'm talking about here.
Which website is that, Lior?
wealthresearchgroup.com.
Okay, all right. Well, I just wanted people to know. You mentioned it's a free report?
They're all free, and they're basically the culmination of I started investing when I was 16. Tragically, my father went bankrupt when I was 13, and so I had to start working and saving. I started babysitting and coaching basketballs, painting decks, whatever I could do. But different than other teens, I actually saved. So by the time I was 16, I had, this was June of 2000, 3 months after the dot-com bubble burst, I had money in a bank account. And the banker told me, look, you're a minor, but you're depositing money directly. You're obviously working. Maybe get your parents to sign a waiver and you could invest. You could put your money to work. And I did. And I asked him, well, what's to it? Well, how do you get started? And he got me looking at a book from Warren Buffett and another one from Peter Lynch, which was the greatest investor of the 80s. And that's how I started to invest. And Peter Lynch, what's funny about him was that about 20 pages of the book are dedicated to his teenage daughter. I was a teenager at the time, so it really resonated with me, who picked some of his best talks by just, looking at stuff that she knew and understood. And so I got that confidence to start investing. And, I've invested since I was 16 and I'm now 36. And 4 years ago, I thought that there was a lot of value in maybe sharing the hundreds of books that I've read about investing and the philosophy that I've developed about it into the Wealth Research Group free newsletter in order to empower people. The government system offers you in terms of education or mainstream TV because it's it's almost like there's a truth that if you get to it, it becomes much easier to understand that much of everything that people say is noise.
Oh,
and that there's fundamental things you can do. Like Mike Maloney. Mike Maloney was pivotal in my life in 2007, and when I read his book and really understood the power behind gold and silver. So, and I'm saying it because you mentioned him, so I have to give him a lot of credit for the role that he played in my life 13 years ago.
Well, you mentioned truth, and I think that you're right because, most of our friends, neighbors, and colleagues, they don't understand what a central bank is. The Federal Reserve, it's not a public government institution, it's privately owned. And I think it's great that you had an honest banker who helped you get good information. Because when you were telling that story, I was thinking of that wonderful South Park clip.
I got a $100 check from my grandma, and my dad said I need to put it in the bank so it can grow over the years.
Well, that's fantastic. A really smart decision, young man. We can put that check in a money market mutual fund. Then we'll reinvest the earnings into foreign currency accounts with compounding interest, and it's gone.
Well, you had an honest banker, and there are so few of those. Well, at least Rothschild-related bankers.
Yes.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you so much. Will you shout out the website again and tell people how to get those reports?
Sure. WealthResearchGroup.com is the free newsletter. I think the best way to get a lot of the information in there, if you go to that top menu button, it says special reports. There's a bunch of them that are really relevant and up to date right now. On what's going on, and they deal a lot with gold, silver, and just the dollar in general.
Okay, well, very good. And guys, thanks so much for tuning in. Our guest has been Lior Gantz. Thank you, Lior.
Thank you, sir.
All right, my pleasure. And friends, thank you so much for your support. A shout out to our patrons and to our members over at sgtreport.tv. We really love you guys. Thank you so much. And for real news, guys, visit us directly at sgtreport.com. The antidote to corporate propaganda, 24/7. God bless. Bye-bye.
Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, they have the worst civil rights record a duo could ever run on in an election. But because of the media, because of the psychosis that drives this entire movement, they are allowed to call people like Trump a racist every day.